Good evening. Welcome to the first meeting of the Assembly Committee on Revenue for the 83rd session of the Nevada Legislature. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members Considine, De Silva, here. Flanagan, here. Gallant, here. Goulding, here. Gray,
here.
Hafen, here. Wynn, here. O'Neill, Roth, here. Chair Backus.
I am present, and there are 11 committee members present this evening, and we, of course, have a quorum. I would like to welcome our audience members here in Carson City and in Las Vegas, as well as those watching or listening over the internet. If you have not done so already, please mute all of your electronic devices. Persons wishing to testify today, please sign in at the table near the door. And before beginning to testify, please present a business card to the committee's secretary and state your name clearly for the record. It would also help if you spell your name, especially for those calling in. Remember to clearly state your name for the record. If you have handouts for the committee, just as a reminder, please remember to bring 20 copies for the committee in addition to providing your handout in electronic format for our committee staff. Also, as a reminder for those who will be testifying before this committee, this session, NRS 218E.085 states that any person who knowingly misrepresents any facts when testifying before a legislative committee could be guilty of a misdemeanor. So we don't want anyone to do that this session. The 2025 session will be a busy one for all of us. Today, though, we are going to take it a little easy. We have a few housekeeping matters, and then our fiscal staff will have a few presentations. First, I would like to start with introductions. I am Assembly Member Shay Backus, representing Assembly District 37 in Clark County. This is my third legislative session and my third session as a member of Assembly Revenue. I am honored to have been chosen to serve as the chair. As you know, Nevada has a citizens legislature. The 63 members of the Senate and Assembly are not full-time politicians, but ordinary citizens from 63 different walks of life. We take time off from our usual employment as attorneys, nonprofit executives, business owners, or educators for a few months every other year to represent our fellow citizens. We all come from different backgrounds and have different areas of expertise. When the legislature passes a bill, it affects every citizen in this state, both now and the often unpredictable future. I take this responsibility very seriously. I do not expect my committee members to have great expertise or in-depth knowledge of the many issues we will hear in this committee. I expect them to read the bills and ask questions from the professionals in the field who will be testifying before us over the next few months, as well as listening to our colleagues when they ask questions, because we are so diverse and different in our professional backgrounds that we do each offer insight in a different fashion to various bills that we may hear this session. I will briefly introduce the committee members and committee staff before giving all members an opportunity to make comments. I will start by recognizing my Vice Chair, Assemblymember Venetia Considine, who is serving her third session in the legislature and her third session on this committee. I am very grateful that she is willing to serve in this capacity of Vice Chair alongside me for the second session in a row. There are 5 other members who have served on this committee previously. Assemblymember Danielle Gallant, this is her second time on revenue. Assemblymember Ken Gray, also his second time on revenue. Assemblymember Gregory T. Hafen, the second. It's actually his fourth term on revenue. Assemblymember Yui Wynn, it's his second time on revenue. Assemblymember P.K. O'Neill, it's his third time on revenue. We have one member who is returning to the Assembly but is new to Revenue Committee. And so please join me in welcoming to the committee Assemblymember Ruben De Silva. And then we have 3 freshman legislators, Assemblymember Tanya Flanagan, Assemblymember Heather Goulding, and Assemblymember Erica Roth. On behalf of all of the returning committee members, I want to extend a sincere welcome to our new members. A vital part of every committee is the staff. I would like to welcome our committee fiscal analysts, Michael Nakamoto and Susanna Powers. Michael is the Chief Principal Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Counsel Bureau. Michael is the head of the tax team and has many years of experience with the Assembly Committee on Revenue. Susanna Powers is Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division, and she will be serving as the committee's analysis for this session. This is her second session and second time staffing this committee. Christian Tower is Deputy Fiscal Analyst and part of Mr. Nakamoto's team. Mr. Tower staffs the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development. He is here to get introduced, being part of Michael's team. Haley Owens is an economist and is here also to get introduced, being part of Michael's team as well. I would also like to take the time to introduce our committee counsel, Brian Fernley, who works in the LCB Legal Division. He will not always be able to attend our meetings, but he will be behind the scenes assisting our committee with any legal matters that may arise through the course of our 120-day session. Legal staff will also be available for committee hearings as required when the issues of topics discussed may require their presence. In addition to our LCB staff, we also have several other staff members who will be helping us get through the session. I've asked all the committee staff to join us today for these introductions. And then I'll kind of pass it around after we introduce the sitting legislators, but we have Catherine Dodge, who is our committee manager this session. We have our committee secretary, Gina Hall. We also have committee assistant Cheryl Williams, as well as my attaché, Mara, who's also going to be available in my office if you guys need anything. I look forward to working with all of our staff. Now I would like to recognize members to make their own introductions, including what district they represent and what they do when they are not in Carson City for the 120-day legislative session. And I'm assuming Assembly Member O'Neill may be back. We are obviously in his area, so it would be what he does in his own city when we're all not up here for the 120-day session. So let's start in the front row with Assembly Member Ken Gray and go to his left, then to the second row.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and glad to be back here for this this committee. This is one of the more fun committees, and I appreciate it. So I'm Assemblyman Ken Gray from Assembly District 39, all of Douglas County, and then the Central Line County corridor. I'm retired United States Air Force, so I have no gainful employment outside of here, but I spend most of my time doing community events, meeting with constituents, and still just trying to do the best job I can in the seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Ruben De Silva. I represent Assembly District 28, which is largely East Las Vegas and North Las Vegas. And I am a school teacher. I teach at Rancho High School, the school that I graduated from. Go Rams. And also a member of the armed forces. I served in the United States Marine Corps, and I'm very happy and looking forward to this committee. This is, again, one that I'm very interested in. It's outside of my usual experience, and I'm looking forward to learning and growing and bettering our state. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I just want to chime in. Thank you both for your service, and thank you for making this committee sound very exciting for our incoming freshmen.
Good afternoon. Being one of those incoming freshmen, I am Assemblymember Tanya Flanagan from District 7 in Southern Nevada. I am representing a large portion of North Las Vegas and a sliver of Las Vegas. When I'm not here for the 120-day session, I have a lot of fun running around Las Vegas, being as sociable as possible. I've worked in government for about 22 years with Clark County in various capacities and had the pleasure of doing a lot of community service work with my sorority and other organizations like the Urban League and just through my church and so different things like that. And when I am not doing anything, I spend most of my time lounging around with a 2-year-old black Labrador retriever named Nico, who's a lot of fun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Heather Goulding. I represent Assembly District 27, which is adjacent to University of Nevada, Reno. When I'm not here, I work as a project manager for a company that does energy efficiency evaluations of utility companies' energy efficiency programs. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh my, Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Erica Roth. I represent Assembly District 24, which neighbors my colleagues, and I do have the university in Reno, so we are neighbors in Revenue Committee as well as our districts. During the interim, I practice appellate law with the Washoe County Public Defender's Office, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to sit on this very exciting committee.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. We're still in afternoon? Yes, good afternoon. My name is Danielle Gallant, and I am the Assemblywoman for District 23. That encompasses a large portions of Henderson, and then it jumps all the way over to Boulder City and all the way down to Laughlin. So I have one of the third largest districts in Clark County. I probably have more scorpions than I do people in my district. When I'm not here, I run two businesses, property management and real estate, and then general construction. I don't swing a hammer. That's my husband's job. I just do the accounting. And then I'm a mom of two boys, 9 and 13 now. And then I've got 3 poodles. One's with me today. Her name's Bendy. And 3 cats. So they kind of keep me all pretty busy, but happy to be here. It's kind of like a break from my zoo. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go all the way to the far right to Assembly Member Haven.
You said the far right, thank you. Assemblyman Gregory Hafen II from Pahrump, Nevada. It's a pleasure to serve on revenue for the 4th session. When I am here, I am still doing my day job to pay the bills as a water and sewer operator as well as small business owner. So thank you for having me on your committee again, even though I didn't ask to be here. I'm just kidding. I love this committee.
Yeah, we didn't want to go after that. I was going to have Assemblymember O'Neill, but that's not happening yet. So, good afternoon. My name is Yui Nguyen. I have the honor to represent District 8 in Southwest Las Vegas, one of the most diverse districts in the state, and I'm honored to serve the residents there. Of course, in between the sessions, I have the honor also to serve the largest growing Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander communities through direct service nonprofits. And then my wife and I also run a small business in Henderson. I really enjoy revenue. I learned so much last session from all the amazing staff here, as well as Chair Backus and Vice Chair Considine. And I begged to get back here as one of my committees. Even though I have 4 committees this session, revenue is one of my favorite. I look forward to learn from all of you and move our state forward. So thank you, Chair.
Well, good late afternoon. I am Assemblymember Venetia Considine. I represent Assembly District 18, which is in the southeast of Las Vegas and a little bit of Henderson. I have the Clark County Wetlands Park in the district, as well as the Henderson Bird Preserve. And if you're not familiar with those, please check those out. They're amazing, free, wonderful places to go for some peace and quiet and some wild animals in Las Vegas, essentially. I am so happy to be here. I actually really do love revenue. When I'm not in the legislature, I've been at the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada for 16 years. I'm an attorney and the Director of Development, and thank you, Madam Chair, for this opportunity.
Thank you. And I obviously kind of briefly introduced myself. Shay Backus, represented from Assembly District 37. My background includes I'm a small business owner. I think we're just slightly bigger than a micro business now, as well as an attorney in civil commercial litigation. I do some transactional work. So now I will like to recognize our amazing fiscal and assembly revenue staff who make this committee run smoothly and answer the difficult questions that we may have regarding our state's revenue, as well as abatements and credits and all things economic development. I'm hoping that with our staff's introduction, that they are able to also provide what their position entails with respect to assembly revenue. Because I can't stress, I think a lot of us that are returning to revenue know what we know because of our fiscal staff. They do answer anything from what you may think is a simple question all the way to something difficult. And so they do provide a lot of support to those members that sit here, as well as the entire LCB. We are so fortunate to have such wonderful people that work here full-time as well as come and work during this session. So with that, I'll start with our Chief Principal Deputy Fiscal Analysis, Michael Nakamoto.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Assembly Revenue Committee. My name is Michael Nakamoto. I serve as Chief Principal Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. I have my team with me, and they will all do their own introductions, but we are known as the tax team. So we are responsible for staffing the revenue committees, both the Assembly Revenue Committee and the Senate Revenue and Economic Development Committee. We are responsible for staffing the Economic Forum when that comes up, and we are also responsible for answering questions about revenue, taxation, economic development, and anything of that sort. By way of background, this is my 10th legislative session with LCB. All 10 of those sessions, in fact, I have had a seat in either Assembly Taxation, as it used to be called, or Assembly Revenue. And so I have been through a lot, and I have seen a lot. I live in Assembly District 25. I don't represent it. And the other thing, you mentioned something about free time, what we do when we're not here, and I don't know what that is. But no, on a serious note, we are here to answer all of your questions, whether it's in committee or otherwise, and please feel free to utilize us as you need. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe some of your free time includes going to some good concerts and some nice travel when you have time.
Good afternoon, Chair Backus and members of the committee. My name is Susanna Powers, Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division. I have been with the Fiscal for almost 3 years now. This is my second session. I was born and raised in Finland before moving to the U.S. to pursue higher education studies at the University of Nevada, Reno, where I earned a dual bachelor's degree in political science and international affairs, as well as a master's degree in economics. Since then, I have built a career in the public sector. Before joining the fiscal division, I spent 13 years as an economist in the executive branch, working first with the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation Research Division, and later with the Governor's Finance Office. I really look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair, committee members. My name is Christian Tauer. I'm a Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Division, and I staff the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development, so I'm the counterpart of Ms. Powers on the Senate side. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Haley Owens. I'm an economist for the tax team of the Fiscal Division. This will be my first session with the Legislative Council Bureau. And prior to that, I spent about 8 years on the executive side of state government.
Thank you. And then if we can go to our committee manager.
Greetings. My name's Catherine Dodge, and I'm the committee manager. Nice to meet you all. I look forward to working with you. This is my first session. I think I'm probably at day 12, so your patience is appreciated. My background is I spent 45 years in Alaska, and there I worked in technology and business and economic development. So I, too, am looking forward to learning about Nevada's revenue system and taxation system. Along the way, I've earned degrees in business and organizational systems. So how economies work and how systems work. And in my spare time, I walk 3 dogs. Thank you.
And we can go to our committee secretary.
I'm Gina Hall. This is my 7th session. I'll have been with this committee, and I'm very happy to be back and to be working with all of you. In my spare time, I ride my horse, and if I'm not doing that, I'm playing with my granddaughters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hall. And then our committee assistant.
I'm Cheryl Williams. This is my 10th session, I think. And I love working with Gina on revenue because she's just awesome. And in my spare time, I just watch horses and cowboys. That's it. Thank you.
And I don't think if my attaché has access to a microphone. Okay. If Mira could kind of just jump on and introduce herself, that'd be great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, everyone. My name is Mira Ponzolan. I am the attaché for the wonderful chair. Super excited to be here with you all and get all this work done this session for our communities.
Thank you all. We are so fortunate to have so many individuals kind of make our committee work. So with that, I also wanted to add, and I know this is going to make it difficult for Gina for the minutes, but in front of you are water bottles, and I'll take a photo so we can put it, because we have to attach things in our minutes. But I did want to apologize. I created a Assembly Revenue logo this time. However, it was supposed to have the counties etched out, and so now it just looks like it's a little scuffed. So I apologize for that. Also, one of the things about me that a lot of people don't know is I'm a big crafter, and so I was going to do your initials on top with some vinyl, and I packed iron-on material and not vinyl. And if you're a crafter, you'll understand the big difference of that. So hopefully in the next week, I will have stickers for each of you so you don't get your water bottles mixed up. So hopefully you enjoy that. So members, now we'll turn to a little business. Before you, or accessible on Nellis, is we have prepared our Assembly Committee on Revenue Committee policies for the 2025 session. For those that have previously served, it's pretty consistent with some minor updates. So I just kind of want to touch on some of those new updates in the committee policies. And that what's kind of important. One key change is that we're asking for exhibits for those that are presenting to provide them at least the day before by 9 a.m. Obviously, I have discretion in approving otherwise, but it's really due to allowing our staff sufficient time to review the materials. The LCB has implemented some policies that require review for trademark laws and things like that. And so we just want to make sure we're giving everyone ample time to get that reviewed and timely put up on the exhibit. So we'd ask by 9 a.m. before the day of our hearings. There are also times during the Assembly Committee on Revenue when some bills or issues receive a lot of testimony, either in support or opposition or neutral, and large volume of public comment. And due to certain time limitations, I may limit the time for all testimony on a measure or public comment. Interested persons are strongly encouraged to submit written testimony in advance or no later than 24 hours after we adjourn from our hearing. So members, does anyone have any questions regarding the committee policies? So with that, I would accept a motion to adopt our committee policies. Thank you, Vice Chair Considine. I have a first. Do I have a second? Thank you, Assembly Member De Silva. Is there any discussion on the motion? With that, those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes carry and the motion passes. A few housekeeping matters that the committee, just to make sure everyone knows, we meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. I would just ask members, we understand completely that something may come up requiring you to either come late or leave early or miss a hearing date. Just please let us know so that we can mark you excused if roll is taken and you are not present. Also, I want to emphasize the importance of courtesy in dealing with other members of the committee staff and all the persons who testify before us. We must never forget that we are here to serve the public. Their testimony deserves like our most respect, but I do understand we're moving into a world of technology, so I would just express to those that are attending our meetings that our members may be using their electronic devices to access various materials that they have before them. And it means no disrespect, it's just for us to access that material as well. I have asked Ms. Powers to provide a refresher to the members on the session deadlines and a brief summary of the topics and activities of the committee. Ms. Powers, please feel free to begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Backus. For the record, Susanna Powers. I will be going over the committee brief. It is electronically available on the Nevada Electronic Legislative Information System, known as NELIS. I will only spend a few minutes going over what is in this brief. It includes an overview of the committee, information on staff, as well as a recap of what the committee did last session. Starting on page 2 of the document, under recap of committee work during the 2023 legislative session, you will see there were a total of 40 measures referred to this committee. Of those 40 measures, 32 were reported out of committee. Of those 32, 18 were reported to the governor or filed with the Secretary of State. Assembly Bill 359 and Senate Bill 429 were approved by the Assembly and Senate, but were vetoed by Governor Lombardo on June 1st and June 3rd, 2023, respectively. Midway on page 2 of the document is an overview of tax legislation from the 2023 session, many of which came through this committee. I do not intend to go through them. They are there for your information. Please reach out to us if you have any questions about the legislative overview in this brief. Beginning on page 16 of the brief is the jurisdiction of the committee. Unlike the Senate, the Assembly does not publish a specific jurisdiction based on chapters of Nevada revised statutes, known as NRS. Historically, bills in Title 32 of NRS come to this committee. This page shows a list of the 33 chapters of NRS in Title 32. We have also been getting a lot of bills relating to economic development that are outside of Title 32. Those are typically found in chapters 231, 231A, 237A, 271A, 271B, and 274 of NRS. On page 17 of the document are committee deadlines. These are based on the 120-day calendar. Also on pages 17 and 18 is a list of the pre-filed measures that have been referred to this committee. These 11 were there at the time of this brief was prepared, so it could be outdated by now. On pages 19 through 22 of the brief is a list of potential PDRs that may affect revenue, economic development, and/or tax policy. On page 23 of the brief is a list of the members of this committee, the members of the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development, as well as the staff contacts for both committees. Then on page 24 of the brief is a directory of other key contacts for some of the departments and other interest groups who may come before this committee. The last page includes the 120-day calendar. This completes the set of information for the committee brief. Are there any questions from the members of the committee?
Does the committee have any questions for Ms. Powers? It does not look like it. This was a really nice committee brief and very user-friendly document. Thank you so much, Ms. Powers. Oh, we will go to Mr. Nakamoto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Michael Nakamoto with the Fiscal Analysis Division. One of the comments that I'd like to make is about the list of BDRs beginning on page 19. Many of what is on this list are items, as you go through, you can see that there are bills that have already been introduced, but have been introduced to different committees. Good examples of that include things relating to gaming policy or cannabis, which are typically go to the judiciary committees. This is kind of a list that we maintain as fiscal staff of bills that we're watching, not only for this committee, but also for our other tasks relating to the Economic Forum and tracking of revenues and things of that nature. So there are things on here that you may be looking at. It's like, okay, this may not be popping up here, but this is stuff that's interesting to us. And so you might be looking at this and wondering what's going through our minds. We just thought it was a useful document to share. Many of the items that are on here could potentially be in the jurisdiction of this committee, but there are other things that may not be. And I think in a sense it shows for a lot of the revenue items that we track as your staff, they kind of touch a lot of different committees, and there's a lot of intertwining and interplay between them. And that's really all the comment that I had. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate all the work you guys put into that. Thank you. Next, we will hear a presentation on the Revenue Reference Manual that is produced before each session by our Fiscal Analysis Division. I just wanted to note, hopefully you all received it. Those members that serve on this committee should have received a hard copy of the reference manual, and just from personal experience, there's a lot of great resources, and I know Ms. Powers is going to touch on kind of how the manual works, but it's a great thing. It can't be pocket-sized because there's a lot there, but it's also can be found on the website as well. Ms. Powers?
Thank you, Chair Backus. For the record, Susanna Powers. The Revenue Reference Manual is electronically available on Nellis. I will be visiting several pages of this manual throughout my presentation. The presentation for this several hundred-page manual will be very brief and high level. The agencies that are responsible for administering several of the taxes included in the Revenue Reference Manual will be giving presentations to this committee and providing more detailed information. I will answer any questions the members may have at the end of my presentation. The Revenue Reference Manual is a document that the Fiscal Analysis Division updates in advance of every session. The table of contents lists the different sections of this document, starting with appropriations and revenue charts, then getting into summaries of the taxes. Legal references and notes about key pieces of legislation that would have affected all included items in this manual are provided. The bulk of this document is taken up by tax legislation history, starting with the 1979 session, going all the way through to the 2023 session. We have made some changes to the manual, and I will highlight some of those throughout my presentation. I will be starting on page 3. There is a pie chart that displays the state general fund appropriations approved by the legislature during the 2023 session and the current fiscal year 2023-2025 biennium. Then if you turn to page 4, there is a pie chart summarizing the Economic Forum's most recent forecast for the upcoming biennium. The state's 2% sales tax, gaming percentage fee, and modified business taxes make up the largest shares of general fund revenue forecast. The 2025-27 biennial forecast for the total general fund revenue after tax credits is $12.4 billion. This pie chart includes fiscal years 2026 and 2027. Then pages 5 through 14 include a table that summarizes the latest Economic Forum forecast by revenue source for fiscal years 2025, 2026, and 2027, with footnotes towards the end associated with any recent relevant legislative changes. I will next move on to the sales and use tax on page 19. Sales and use tax is administered by the Department of Taxation. This tax is levied on taxable sale and taxable use of tangible personal property. The statewide sales and use tax rate in Nevada is 6.85%. And there are 4 components for that statewide tax rate. The first component of the sales and use tax is the 2% rate that is dedicated to the state general fund. On page 21 is the second component of the sales and use tax, the basic city-county relief tax, which is a rate of 0.5%. This is dedicated to local governments and distributed to them through what is known as the Consolidated Tax Distribution, C-Tax. Turn to page 22. The supplemental city-county relief tax is the third component of the sales tax. The rate is 1.75%, and it is also distributed through C-Tax and has different rules that apply. The procedure is outlined on this page. Please turn to page 24. The fourth component is the local school support tax, which is imposed at a rate of 2.6%. This is dedicated to K-12 education in the state education fund. In summary, the 4 components outlined make up the total statewide rate of 6.85%, but some county sales tax rates can be higher. For example, the sales and use tax rate in Washoe or Clark counties is considerably higher than the statewide tax rate. This is because counties under legislative authority are able to levy additional optional sales taxes for various purposes. References to these county optional sales taxes start on page 25. Page 27 has detailed information about county optional taxes, including the rate and how much was collected in fiscal years 2023 and 2024, and for what purpose. Finally, something new in this edition is a sales tax rate table, which starts on page 28. For each county, the 4 components that make up the statewide rate of 6.85% are shaded in gray. Any county listed with a higher total tax rate is imposing one or more optional sales and use tax rates authorized in statute or under certain special and local acts, as noted in the statutory authority column. I'm going to be moving on to the gaming taxes next. And I will talk about the largest type of gaming tax, which is the gaming percentage fee. This is listed on page 35. Gaming taxes are administered by the Gaming Control Board. This tax is paid on taxable gross gaming revenue by non-restricted licenses in the state. Non-restricted licenses are gaming establishments with 16 or more slot machines, and they also have other games, including a race and sports book. The fee is paid on a progressive schedule outlined on page 35. Other notable gaming taxes are listed on pages 36 through 42. I was not going to get into those, other than mentioning that we have something new in this edition, and we have added the unredeemed wagering vouchers listed on page 42. These vouchers are receipt-like tickets that patrons visiting non-restricted gaming establishments are not cashing out after playing certain casino games after their expiration date or 180 days, whichever is shorter. 75% of the value of unredeemed wagering vouchers is transferred to the state treasurer to be deposited in a general fund. The revenue generated from expired vouchers is substantial, reaching nearly 20 million. Next, we're going to visit the property tax section, and it starts on page 45. Property taxes are primarily a revenue source for local governments. In general, land is appraised at its market value, while improvements are appraised at replacement cost less depreciation of 1.5% per year up to 50 years. The assessed value is 35% of the appraised taxable value. The property tax rate varies by county, and there are constitutional and statutory limitations. Property owners are eligible for a partial abatement of property taxes assessed upon real and personal property in Nevada. The tax bill cannot increase by more than 3% over the prior year's bill for single-family, owner-occupied primary residences, as well as certain residential rentals that meet the HUD, the Federal Housing and Urban Development Rent Guidelines. A parcel cap of up to 8% applies to all other types of properties. That cap is determined with a two-step formula outlined on page 46. New construction or properties with zoning changes will not qualify for any cap until the second year. In summary, the property tax section has information about average statewide property taxes, abatements applied to properties in the state, and information on how much revenue was collected for local governments, state education fund, and the state bond fund. Next, I am going to turn to page 49 for net proceeds of minerals tax. This is an annual tax paid by mining operations in the state in lieu of property taxes. Net proceeds are calculated by deducting allowable production-related expenses from the gross yield. The tax rate depends on the ratio of net proceeds to the gross proceeds. The minimum rate is 2%. The maximum tax rate is 5%. Applied to the net proceeds in excess of $4 million annually and all royalties. Page 50 has information on how much revenue was collected for local governments, the state education fund, and the state bond fund. The next section takes us to the excise taxes, and I will start with the liquor tax on page 55. Liquor is taxed differently depending on the alcohol content by volume as well as the type of alcohol. The state general fund receives all revenues after collection allowance except for tax received from liquor containing over 22% alcohol. 65 cents per gallon of the tax on liquor containing over 22% alcohol is peeled off. The liquor program account in the state general fund receives 15 cents per gallon from the tax. The remaining 50 cents per gallon from the tax is deposited in the local government tax distribution account and redistributed within each county through C-tax distribution. Please turn to next page for the cigarette tax. So that would be, I believe, page 56. The tax on cigarettes is 90 mils per cigarette. 1 mil is 1/10 of a penny. So then the tax per cigarette is 9 cents. If you have a pack of 20 cigarettes, the tax totals to $1.80. The state general fund receives 85 mils per cigarette, and that amounts to $1.70 per pack of 20, less collection allowance. 5 mils per cigarette, which is 10 cents per pack of 20 cigarettes, is deposited in the local government tax distribution account and redistributed within the counties through C-tax distribution. Then next on page 57 is other tobacco products tax. Other tobacco products are taxed at 30% of the wholesale price of tobacco products other than cigarettes. This tax applies to certain alternative nicotine products and vapor products, including e-cigarettes and their components. Cannabis taxes start on page 58. Cannabis tax collection is administered by the Department of Taxation. Regulation of cannabis is done by the Cannabis Compliance Board, known as the CCB. The 15% wholesale tax was approved by the voters in a 2016 general election. The wholesale tax is deposited in the Cannabis Compliance Board account, and after certain expenses are paid, the leftover is deposited in a state education fund. Please turn to the next page for the 10% retail component of the cannabis tax. The retail tax was approved by the legislature during the 2017 session. In fiscal years 2018 and 2019, the 10% retail tax proceeds went to the account to stabilize the operation of the state government, otherwise known as the Rainy Day Fund. Since fiscal year 2020, the retail tax proceeds have been deposited for the benefit of the K-12 education. Next is transportation connection tax on page 62. This is also often referred as the Uber tax. This tax applies to taxi cabs and other common carriers and transportation network companies. The tax rate is 3% of the fair price. The State Highway Fund receives the first $5 million that is generated from this tax in an even-numbered year of each biennium. The balance of this revenue goes to the State General Fund. Next is the gold and silver excise tax. It is a relatively new tax. This is on page 63. The 2021 session enacted an annual tax on each business entity engaged in the business of extracting gold and/or silver in this state whose Nevada gross revenue in a taxable year exceeds $20 million, effective July 1, 2021. The tax is paid on a progressive schedule outlined on page 63. The proceeds from this tax are distributed to benefit the K-12 education in a state education fund starting fiscal year 2024. We are now in the fuel and motor vehicle taxes section on page 67. Fuel taxes are administered by the Department of Motor Vehicles. Fuel taxes are paid on a wholesale level, and the tax rate varies depending on the type of fuel and what county you are in. The motor vehicle fuel tax, again, starts on page 67, and I'm just going to go briefly over a couple highlights. Gasoline has a 23-cent per gallon state-mandated rate, of which 17.65 cents goes to the State Highway Fund, and 5.35 cents goes to the county in which the tax is collected. There's also a 1 cent mandatory county tax for road repair and up to 9 cents per gallon by county ordinance for regional transportation projects. Counties with certain population thresholds may, with voter approval, enact an ordinance imposing additional county fuel rates within the limits permitted by law. Note that the rate on gasoline is different than the tax on special fuels. This edition features a new table on page 70 showcasing current and historical tax rates from fuel tax indexing in Clark and Washoe counties. I'm moving on to the special fuels, beginning on page 71. Examples of special fuels are diesel, liquid petroleum gas, compressed natural gas, and so on. Special fuel tax is primarily a state tax, although there are indexed rates in Clark and Washoe counties. 10 rural counties also impose a 5-cent tax on diesel fuel listed on page 74. We've also included a section on aviation fuel, which can be found alongside the jet fuel taxes on page 77. Please turn to page 78. Related to motor vehicle fuel taxes is the governmental services tax, also known as GST. This is paid to the Department of Motor Vehicles when you register your vehicle based on the value of that vehicle. The valuation of vehicles for purposes of the tax is 35% of the manufacturer's suggested retail price, excluding options at the time the make and model for that year was first offered for sale in Nevada. The taxable value is multiplied by a depreciation factor outlined on page 78. The basic GST state rate is 4%. The supplemental GST rate of 1% is imposed in Clark and Churchill counties. GST rate is subject to a constitutional limit of $5 per $100 of assessed value. Page 79 details the allocation of the proceeds from this tax. The largest share of the governmental services tax goes to local governments and school districts. Page 80 includes information about Senate Bill 429 of the 2009 session that increased the depreciation factor for all ages and categories of vehicles except for new vehicles by 10% effective September 1st, 2009. Under current law, all of those proceeds generated by the additional 10% are deposited in a state highway fund. I will next briefly highlight a couple of other taxes. The insurance premium tax is on page 83. The insurance premium tax is a 3.5% tax on net insurance premiums written in Nevada. For risk retention groups, the rate is 2% on net premiums. Please turn to page 85 for the captive insurer premium tax. The tax rate varies depending on the amount of annual net premiums. The modified business tax, known as MBT, starts on page 86. In general, modified business tax is a tax on taxable wages paid by certain businesses that are required to pay unemployment insurance contributions in this state. Taxable wages are calculated by subtracting eligible health insurance deductions from gross wages. The structure and the tax rate depend on the type of business. We have 3 business types for this tax: financial institutions, mining companies, and general businesses. MPT financial institution information is on page 86. The current tax rate is 1.554% on all taxable wages. Then the second type of business tax is the mining MPT, and that information is on page 89. The tax rate is the same as the financial institutions, 1.554% on all taxable wages. So it's the same, matches the rate for financial institutions. General business information starts on page 92. The tax is imposed at the rate of 1.17% on all taxable wages exceeding $50,000 per calendar quarter. Taxable wages below $50,000 per calendar quarter are exempt. Next is the branch bank excise tax on page 96. The tax is $1,750 per quarter on each branch maintained by a bank. The first branch in each county is exempt from this tax. Then on page 97 is the business license fee. Business license fee is primarily collected by the Office of the Secretary of State. The fee is $500 per year for corporations and $200 per year for all other business entities. The short-term car rental fee is on page 98. The state collects a 10% fee of the total amount for which the passenger car is leased, excluding any taxes or other fees imposed by a governmental entity. The additional 2% imposed in Washoe and Clark counties must be used for certain purposes. Senate Bill 389 of the 2021 session provided that passenger cars that are shared through peer-to-peer programs, such as Turo, are subject to a short-term car lease fee as well. Now I'm on page 100. The real property transfer tax is levied on the value of real property. I'm going to repeat that. The real property transfer tax is levied on the value of real property transferred from one person to another, and the rate varies by county. The state general fund receives $1.30 on each $500 of value less a collection allowance retained by each county. The proceeds from the real property transfer tax go to several sources listed on page 100 under the subheading distribution. Next is the live entertainment tax on page 101. There are two types of live entertainment tax. The tax for live entertainment provided by gaming establishments is administered by the Gaming Control Board, and the tax for live entertainment provided by non-gaming establishments is administered by the Department of Taxation. The live entertainment tax rate is 9% on the admission price, and the first $150,000 of tax revenue collected by the Department of Taxation in each fiscal year is transferred to the Nevada Arts Council. I'm going to skip the estate tax on page 103. It has not been collected in a long time, but it is part of the Nevada Constitution, so we leave it in there. So I'm moving on to the room taxes that start on page 104. And I'm almost done. So the room taxes on page 104 are imposed on the gross receipts from the rental of transient lodging. We have a state-mandated rate of 2% of the gross receipts in counties with a population above 700,000 and 1% in all other counties. An additional rate up to 3% is collected in counties whose population is 300,000 or more. That is Clark and Washoe counties. Counties and cities impose additional room taxes at various rates and for various purposes. Next is the commerce tax, and it starts on page 106. Commerce tax is paid by businesses that have more than $4 million in Nevada gross revenue per fiscal year. In the state, just a second, the tax rate depends on the type of industry the business is primarily engaged in, and page 108 has a list of the tax rates by industry type. The North American Industry Classification System, also known as NAICS, is a category code for a business that is used to determine its commerce tax business category and tax rate. Then after the sections I highlighted follows the legislative history. Pages 111 through 248 cover the history. It starts with the 1979 session and ends with the 2023 session. I'm not planning on going over that. I'm going to move on to the highlighting a couple other sections. Taxation information. Tax glossary is on page 253 and expands several pages. And on page 265, there is a list of publications from the Department of Taxation that are available on their website. We want to thank the Department of Taxation for their assistance in updating this section. Next is the section on exemptions, abatements, deferrals, and credits. That section starts on page 277. Again, I was not going to go through this section other than highlighting that in this section, starting on page 277, you will find information about sales tax exemptions, abatements, and deferrals, property tax abatements and exemptions, exemptions for governmental services tax, real property transfer tax, live entertainment tax, and commerce tax. Then information about various tax credit programs start on page 333, so 333. The set of tax credit programs listed in that section may be redeemed against certain general fund tax revenues. Many of the abatements and transferable tax credit programs are related to economic development in this state. The tax credit section includes 2 updates. We have updated the Nevada New Markets Jobs Act section on pages 335 through 338. And we have also added the transferable tax credit program for the Major League Baseball Stadium project approved by Senate Bill 1 of the 35th special session on pages 351 and 352. Page 357 covers some local government finance issues. These issues are related to limitations on property tax rates, assessment standards, and fee limitations. Lastly, there are information about fiscal notes beginning on page 369. A fiscal note details the fiscal effect of certain bills and resolutions and becomes a part of the bill or resolution. The statutory provisions regarding fiscal notes for bills and joint resolutions are found in NRS 218D 400 through 218D 495. That wraps up my presentation, but before we move on to the members' questions, Mr. Nakamoto will have a few comments about the Revenue Reference Manual, and he will set me straight if I said something incorrect.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Again, for the record, Michael Nakamoto with the Fiscal Analysis Division. I'm going to skip the part about correcting anything that Ms. Powers said on the record, because I don't believe she did. But what I will note is that the Revenue Reference Manual, you all got a copy, and it is available on our website as well for the members of the public. It is a large document. It is at 371 pages now. This is my 10th session. The first time we did this, it was at 170 pages, and we've added a lot of information. One of the things that we're looking at, those of you who have been around notice that there's a brand new cover to it. We decided we would actually put a brand new modern cover on it, as opposed to the cover that I believe was originally designed in the early 80s. A lot of the Revenue Reference Manual is based on, in fact, a design that was from the 80s. And so one of our tasks as your staff for this coming interim is to modernize it and update it and provide new and different information, maybe streamline some of the things we have in there. And so the comments that I have for all of you, because you are members of the Revenue Committee, you are legislators, you are ultimately the consumer of this document that we are preparing, is that if you are going through this and you find things that you like, things that that you wish were different, things that you don't like, if you have questions, comments, concerns, please reach out to us. We are soliciting feedback on this document and the ways that we can improve it. Those of you who have been on this committee before have seen this in various iterations and probably have used it as a reference. I use it as a reference because it's handy and it's easy. But especially for those of you who are new, if you see things in here that you think are lacking or things that you wish were there, let us know, and we will take those into consideration. And maybe when we are back here in the 2027 session, we will have something that looks a little different and hopefully still provides the information that you all need. With that, those were my comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. I know there's a lot there, and probably people have questions, but if anyone does have a question for Ms. Powers or Mr. Nakamoto, we can entertain them. One thing I want to highlight is the really nice thing about, there's a lot here, but we're going to have some presentations from different agencies that do collect the revenue, and so we will be taking a deeper dive for a couple of our hearings. So we'll continue to learn more, and then you'll also get to hear bills that will probably may or may not impact some of these revenue sources. So it's an amazing reference manual. I like mine. I actually like the hard copy and I use them. So thank you so much. Next, we will hear a presentation on the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Revenue Bulletin. I will turn the microphone over to Mr. Nakamoto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Michael Nakamoto with the Fiscal Analysis Division. As a reminder, Ms. Powers and I, as your legislative staff for this committee. We are nonpartisan staff for all 63 legislators. We serve in this role as well as a number of other roles in that capacity, and one of those is also as staff to the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Revenue. You all have the bulletin that we put together. This has just been released probably within the last week or so that outlines the goings-on of the revenue JISC during the last interim. These joint interim standing committees were originally created by the legislature in Assembly Bill 443 of the 2021 session, and they were codified in NRS 218E.320, which set up a number of joint interim standing committees that mirror the policy committees for the legislature during a regular session, with the exception of the Money Committee's Ways and Means and Finance, because they already had their own interim committee in the form of the Interim Finance Committee. So the membership of this committee during the last interim, our chair was the chair of the Revenue JISC, and that alternates between houses. So the chair of Senate Revenue and Economic Development is very likely to be the chair next time. Also, Assembly members Considine, Hafen, and Hafen were regular members, along with Assembly members Orntlicher and Urick. And then the alternate members from the Assembly included Assembly members Anderson, Mosca, and O'Neill. There were 5 meetings of the JISC between January and August. On page 1 of this of the bulletin, it outlines the presentations that were given. Many of them had to do with revenue or overviews, kind of tracking of state general fund revenues year to date that were done by your fiscal staff. There were presentations from agencies, including the Office of Economic Development, the Office of Workforce Innovation in the Governor's Office, the Department of Taxation, as well as we received several presentations from the National Conference of State Legislatures, otherwise known as NCSL, on a number of topics. And this is my opportunity again to thank them for their assistance in helping us with the presentations. The statutory provisions for the Joint Interim Standing Committees allow for up to 10 bill draft requests. For most of the committees, there are a couple that have additionals that they can recommend, but this committee had up to 10 that they could recommend. The recommendations there were a total of 3 that came out from the work session meeting on August 27th. And those are outlined beginning on page 5. I'm not going to go through them all, other than to note that these are BDRs 418, 419, and 420 that are on our other list in the committee brief. Those have yet to be introduced, though. But those may be under consideration at some point in one of the revenue committees, or both, depending on their success. With that, Madam Chair, members of the committee, that is all I really wanted to go through on this. But if there are any questions, I would be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Committee members, do we have any questions for Mr. Nakamoto? Okay. With that, I think we are moving to our very last item on our agenda this evening, which is I would like to open it to the meeting for public comment. And we will start in Las Vegas. The room's kind of dark, so I'm assuming there's probably no one down there in Las Vegas wishing to give public comment this evening. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to give public comment? Doesn't look like it. And now I'll turn it over to AVH. Is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to give public comment this evening?
The public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Perfect, thank you. Do we have any comments from our members this evening? With that, I am happy to go ahead and adjourn our meeting this evening. Thank you, guys.